Hey folks, my name is Dale Davidson. They call me the VA guy, and thank you for tuning in today. Hey, if you like what we're doing here, please hit that like and subscription button and the notification bell. That helps us out a lot. Hey, look, tell your friends, tell your families, tell your buddies about this channel. Our mission is to make difference in people's lives, and that's what we're trying to do with our veterans and the spouses of our veterans, which basically just helps out the family because, we're all about relationships here. So, and by the way, if you have any topics that you want to hear about, just leave me a comment below or send me an email to dearvaguy@gmail.com, dearvaguy@gmail.com, and we will do our best to answer your question and hopefully maybe make a video out of the topic that you have chosen. So the topic today is kind of a rather sad topic because it involves children and birth defects because of a veteran's exposure to certain toxic chemicals from your service in Vietnam, Thailand, or near the DMZ in Korea, during the Vietnam era. So, and we're basically talking about your exposure to Agent Orange. Now, if you served in the Republic of Vietnam, in Thailand, or near the DMZ in Korea during the Vietnam era, and your child had, and we're talking about males only, we're going to talk about females in just a minute. So, and your child was born with spina bifida or certain other birth defects, your child may be eligible for disability benefits. Now, for those of you who don't know, spina bifida is a spinal cord birth defect. The baby develops spina bifida while still in the womb. So in certain cases, a parent's past contact with specific chemicals causes this birth defect. So that's why it's so important. If you were in Vietnam, Thailand, or in or near the Korean DMZ, you were exposed to Agent Orange, maybe your child has spina bifida or certain other birth defects, your child, again, may be eligible to get disability benefits, So, here's just one more outrageous side effect of Agent Orange. Remember, I had a previous video where they sprayed 20% of the country of Vietnam with that stuff, It's just it's a defoliant. It's really does havoc to people's DNAs, and it does a lot of harm to humans. Cancers, skin rashes, all kinds of problems come out of the Agent Orange. So, what if you served after Vietnam or never went to an Agent Orange area? What if you were stationed in, I don't know, you probably heard about this, Camp Lejeune. Now the CDC reports that between 8,000 and 10,000 Camp Lejeune babies were born with birth defects. And these babies were diagnosed with oral clefts, cleft lips, some kind of, they call it a neural tube birth defect. I'm not exactly sure what that is, since the water was so contaminated in Camp Lejeune. And that was, again, discovered in they knew about it, but they didn't really do anything till recently, but they knew about it back in the 1980s. And they knew when they were dumping the toxic stuff into the water supply. They just didn't say anything. So, a federal study in 2003 found that the rate of certain birth defects at Camp Lejeune was, get this, 265 times higher than the national average. 265 times the national average. That is a huge, huge increase. Now, we talked a little bit about fathers. If you were exposed while during your service, you were exposed to Agent Orange in those areas, Vietnam, Thailand, and the DMZ for Korea, then we're mainly talking about spina bifida. However, mothers that were exposed So if you were a female and you were serving in those areas, or you were in Camp Lejeune, okay, and you were exposed to Agent Orange, or you were exposed to the toxic water at Camp Lejeune, okay, and you may have had a miscarriage, stillbirths, all of those kinds of drastic and terrible things may have happened to you, okay. Now, the VA has recently added miscarriages to its list of conditions linked to Camp Lejeune. So if you experienced a miscarriage, you need to get in touch with us so we can help you out with that. Okay. Now, birth defects associated with chemicals found in the Camp Lejeune water supply include, of course, spina bifida, missing part of the brain or skull, and there's a technical term for that, I just can't pronounce it. There are heart defects, miscarriages, and stillbirths. Okay. Now, fortunately, exposure to these chemicals, the TCEs and PCEs, benzene, and vinyl chlorides, and all of that, that doesn't necessarily mean that your baby will be born with these birth defects. It just means that you're 265 times more likely to have a baby born with those kinds of birth defects. So the likelihood of developing birth defects increases with increased exposure. It's just like increased exposure. If you're sitting out there laying in the sun, you're more likely to contract some kind of skin cancer. So the more you're out there, the more you are exposed, the more likely that you're going to develop those, your baby will have those birth defects. So, but again, people exposed to most of the chemicals for the longest period of time have the greatest risk. So, question, is your child having these birth defects eligible for VA disability? Okay, for spina bifida, your child may be eligible for disability benefits if there's some requirements, okay? So one of the following must be true. The child's biological mother or father must have served in Vietnam or in Thailand for any length of time between 1962 and 1975. Or the child's biological mother or father served in a unit in or near the DMZ for any length of time between 1967 and 1971. Okay, so one of those two things have got to be true in order for your child to be eligible for spina bifida benefits. Now, the following both must be true in order to qualify. You've got to have, of course, a diagnosis of spina bifida, okay? And there's different kinds of spina bifida, but they don't, for some reason, the VA in their infinite wisdom has said spina bifida occulta does not count, and I don't know why, okay? And this child must have been conceived after you first entered Vietnam or Thailand or the DMZ during the qualifying periods we talked about from 1962 to 1975. So if you and your spouse were pregnant before you went there and they had the spina bifida, that doesn't count. You would have been pregnant and had the baby after you served in those areas, okay? Now that doesn't include the Camp Lejeune, okay? That's a different issue. Again, but remember, your character of discharge and length of service, that generally they affect your ability to get benefits. This does not affect your child's eligibility for benefits. So even if you had otherwise something other than a honorable discharge, if you meet those requirements, your child would still be eligible, okay? For other birth defects, okay, your child may be eligible for disability benefits if they have a covered birth defect. that cause permanent physical or mental disability. Now, of course, a permanent necessarily means the disability doesn't go away, okay? And they meet the following requirements. Both of these, there's two of them. The biological, here we are, biological mother, not father, biological mother served in Vietnam anytime between 1962 and 1975. And the child was conceived after the mother, not the father, entered Vietnam or Thailand during those periods. So this is where the coverage for birth defects for children is expanded as to the mother, and they're very, very limited as to the father, and they're limited to spina bifida only. So, kind of a recap. The father, the child is conceived after the father has gone to Vietnam or Thailand or the DMZ during those periods of time, came back on leave, and then the couple got pregnant, okay? That's the father. If the child has been spina bifida, with the exception of the spina bifida occultus, then the child can be entitled to VA benefits. Now the mother, if the child was conceived after the mother went to Vietnam or Thailand or the DMZ during those periods of time, okay, then the birth defect or the birth defects that are covered are expanded. In addition to the spina bifida, you've got the brain and other developmental disabilities that are permanent. Okay, they can't be temporary. So look, it's hard. I mean, your kids are your life. I understand that. I've got 3 myself, and so it's difficult to talk about this, and it makes you mad that the government has exposed you to these chemicals, and basically now has injured your children, and so that's very upsetting. But hey, we're here to help if you need help. So just all you got to do is send us an email at dearvaguy@gmail.com, dearvaguy@gmail.com. Hey folks, thanks for tuning in today. If you like what we're doing here, if you've learned something new, and we hope you have, please hit that like and subscribe button. And hey, don't forget about that notification, because that really helps out a lot. Let your friends, family, your fellow soldiers, reservists, whatever it is, let them know about this channel. Say, hey, you ought to check this guy out. He's got some good stuff. So if you need help with your DIC claim, have any topics that you want to hear about regarding the VA, please leave me a comment below, or send me an email to dearvaguy@gmail.com. So until next time, go out there with your head high, confident, and make a difference in somebody's life. Y'all be blessed.
No more whiskey, I'll have a Coke. Catching bass on an old fishing boat. One more story from Grandpa Joe.